Yeah, I've been lucky to see a lot of different athletes over the years. The one thing I always feel like wins out is the consistency. Okay, it's hard to be consistency, and let's just call it the skill of showing up. It's a skill. It's a skill. You got to show up. Okay.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we're joined by the founder and co-owner of Healthy Baller, Blair O'Donovan. Coach O'Donovan has 24 years of coaching experience. He's an NSCA certified strength and conditioning specialist. Over his long experience training athletes, Coach O'Donovan has been a part of many sports teams, including the Washington Wizards, the LeBron James Skills Academies, McDonald's All-American Games, Jordan All-American Classics, and several overseas professional teams. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Well, man, thank you so much for doing this, for giving up your time, and just want to see first how you're doing.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's a busy time of the year, which is good. A lot on the plate. Right now this time of the year, got some pro guys getting ready for, professional stuff. So it's kind of a fun time of the year for us here.
I completely get that, and again, thank you so much for making the time. This is a special one for me because I've been watching your videos. I mean, back even when with the stronger team with Alan Stein, one of my favorite ones that you did was the healthy baller, the best like post-workout meal where you go to Wendy's and you get the chili, and I think you paired it with a small Frosty. Oh yeah, and I told my players that. I said, listen, this is what you need to be eating after, and then I started doing it too. I don't know. I think over the years the Frosty has gotten me in some trouble, but with my way. But no, I've just been a huge fan. So this is an honor for me, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny. It's more common than I can probably give it credit for. The work I did with Alan years ago, just early social media stuff and early just YouTube videos. Or I run into people all the time. We're like, I remember seeing you at this and that. It's really cool to. It also tells me how old I'm getting too. So
that's what I felt. Like, man, that was like 10 years ago.
More than that, easily. Yeah, closer to 15 at this stage, probably. But yeah, we did some fun stuff back then. I wanted to do more of those, but to be honest with you, man, it was tough. It was tough going in some of those restaurants because they weren't really having it. They didn't really want me videoing in there and stuff. Like I wanted to do one. I wanted to do one in a gas station. I wanted to do one at like common like fast food restaurant. And the reason why I did that, of course, you probably understand, is like I don't eat at Wendy's. I mean, I don't necessarily encourage it, but kids are going to go there. They're going to spend the money. They're going to be on an AAU trip. They've got $15, go to work, and what are they going to do? They're going to go and they're going to get a triple Big Mac. I mean, we can make better decisions in places that are not considered quote unquote healthy. So that was the whole goal of that. And I wish I took it up another notch, but it was just there were some obstacles in the way. And now I believe those videos are living on Drew Hanlon's site. I don't have access to those, unfortunately, anymore, but I still reference them out, which is cool.
So, nice. Yeah. If you do choose to do some, we need it for because I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth. If Chick-fil-A and Whataburger, those are the two go-tos that with a little in and out. If you did those videos, I'm sure I'd be able to send my guys them. They would love it.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A is a big one over here too. But man, it's amazing. It's amazing how like Chick-fil-A could be put in that category of, okay, it's a little bit better than whatever, say McDonald's. Like it depends on who you're talking to, of course. Some people think it's like the most evil food in the world, but it's amazing just the junk that goes into making these foods taste good. So I'm even at a stage now where I'm really just trying to encourage kids to prep ahead of time and eat as much whole food as they can, which is really the most important thing, but just get ahead of the curve and be like, be prepared enough that you don't have to rely on the Chick-fil-A. I mean, obviously you can do it sometimes. You're a kid, you're going to be on the go, parents on the go, but just, put effort into the preparation like they do with the strength, with the skill, all that stuff,
That was my thought too, what you said is being a parent of a sophomore student at my school, it really is a lot on us.
Yeah,
because those kids are going to eat whatever is in the house. And if you
totally.
only have crap in there, then that's what they're going to go to, especially what's easy. And you're right. We spend a lot of money on select ball, on training, on, in my case, for him to go to this school, which is a private school. But how much attention do we actually give to the fuel that he's putting in his body to be able to do all these activities at 100%? I know right now, I think I'm pretty, like most parents, guilty of not really giving that its full attention.
Yeah, it's hard, and maybe that's an education piece for a lot of folks. Maybe it's a you could argue it's preparation with the adult side as well. Like, I mean, you guys are paying the bills for the groceries. The kids aren't likely going up and down that aisle and picking because they know what they can get. So it's not likely, right? So there's a preparation on both sides, and the parents I've dealt with over the years that have that organization down point on point more because of their own health can clearly see it in the children, can clearly see it. And so, we definitely have conversations with our parents as well, in a positive manner. I mean, obviously you got to be super careful how you present certain information and don't want to put people in a bad spot. Like, what are you doing? That sort of thing. We're all human beings, and no one's exempt from having some ice cream and having some candy here and there, but when you see some of these kids that are like I was, and that's why I always use myself as a prime example. I was living off of crunch berries. I'm living off of frosted flakes, man, like Lucky Charms. I lived all that stuff. And I'll never forget is like in my early 20s when I really took my training, my nutrition, my career seriously. I was like, I still eating all those things. I was really slightly depressed when I was like, man, I probably shouldn't be having Lucky Charms all the time. That was a sad realization. But that's the truth because it's just literally junk.
Yeah, it's
It's
funny
junk. So
when
it's
you
not.
said that about the cereal that you're living off of. My first thought was, man, those were the days. Those.
Oh, I loved it. I love it. And I've revisited those times, over the years. I'm 43 now. I haven't done it very often, but when I do, it's fun in the moment, and then my stomach pays the price every time, man. It doesn't feel good. That's how
Man,
it
just
goes.
kind of a random question here. Just diet wise, like where do you land on? Is it just pretty balanced with everything? Do you go more of the keto carnivore route, or do you or more plants based? Where do you fall?
Yeah, so I'll be careful how I share this here, but um my big focus is really whole food. Okay, so I'm whole food focused. I'm gonna say 80-85% of the time. And that other 15-20% is me just being a human being, going out with my wife or having, enjoying some new restaurant, trying something new, um, maybe a little Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which is, it's hard to fight that battle sometimes. So, but I'm a big steak and eggs guy. So that's a great portion of what I consume. And really, truly, because I believe those are the power foods. I don't quite subscribe to some of the traditional quote unquote superfoods or power foods that we might read on the internet of like, I'm not going to demonize any food, so I won't even just list anything. But it's hard to argue for me against that steak and eggs being, high quality meats, high quality eggs, high quality fruits and vegetables. You know, it's going to be hard to beat that, I believe. And then, of course, I still treat myself as an athlete. I train myself as an athlete, and so I'm certainly taking in quite a bit of carbs. And so, carbs have to support that process as well. So I just really center that around unprocessed carbs. And there's really not that many out there to play with. So it's really rice, potatoes, and for me, I keep it as simple as that.
I wanted to ask a little bit about healthy baller and learn a little bit more. You mentioned being able to train some pro athletes
Yep.
and do you work also with some high school players and some high schools in your area? Tell me a little bit more about healthy baller.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Healthy Baller is an athlete performance training company. We're in the DC metro area. We have three different facilities around the area, primarily focusing on youth. Okay, so middle school, high school. That's the really big meat and potatoes of what we do. The professional side is a small percentage of our population, as you can imagine. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I'm focusing primarily on basketball. But we have multi sports. We're doing lacrosse, soccer, baseball. We're doing it all. We don't do a ton of football, but basketball, lacrosse probably are big focus points here. But yeah, a lot of my energy in my day is spent, probably mostly on high school, college athletes, that sort of thing, and then this time of the year through most of the summer, I'll have a variety of pro guys coming in and out of town. A lot of times it depends on who the agents that I'm connected with, who they picked up, who they have training, and I'll have an opportunity to train them at different points of the year.
That's really cool. And I think speaking to somebody like you is important as a high school coach. And there's probably a lot that will listen to this that are in the same boat. A lot of times we're stuck being the strength coaches as well. And so even though, I mean, I played basketball and I was trained by trainers, I'm not a trainer. And so trying to figure out what's best for my guys in the weight room, what will really translate to the court, what's good for them, helping them with their nutrition. I just think the more that as coaches we can learn from guys like you, the better.
Yeah, and that's what Stronger Team was really all about. That was our sort of our movement, so to say. Like we were doing not a certification, but we had created a training system, and we had some seminars. We did three of them well back in the day. I want to say it was like 2012, 13-ish. We did a couple at DeMatha High School, which is a historic basketball program in the area, and then we did one at the Nike headquarters in Portland, Oregon. And it was really for coaches like yourself who might have to have multiple duties of head coach, don't have the ability to have a strength coach at school, but want, have interest enough to like understand some basic principles there. There's a huge population of those
Yep.
folks. I know a lot of schools are now getting strength coaches, but and that's the case, especially in our area. But I see it a lot more often where the coach is going to say like that one strength coach is just doing the same thing for everybody in the school, which is the case a lot of times, and not necessarily that coach's fault because you probably have 300, 400, 500 kids you got to deal with, and probably very low grade pay, and you're not paid to individualize per team or per person. So
Yeah.
it's beneficial for the coach to understand what could I do. So it's good stuff that there.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Bology. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Bology app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Bology skills assessment. Please visit bology.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. So you get to work with a lot of athletes and some pro athletes. I'm excited to hear about some of their habits, but I would imagine you being in the gym, you talked a little bit about your nutrition and how you still train as an athlete. I would imagine you have some daily habits that really set you up for success. So tell me kind of like morning, daily routines that just help you to win the day.
Yeah. So, earlier in my career, I feel like I couldn't stop coming across information of like morning routines. What are the morning routines that everybody's doing to be successful? And you hear everything under the sun, right? And I always joke about my morning routine because it's very unorthodox. The reason why I say that is because I've got like 15 animals in the house. Okay, so my wife works for a rescue company, and we have a lot of animals ourselves, but we have a lot of fosters. And so my morning routine is not a meditation, 30 minutes. It's like it's chaos control. It's like everything's going in different directions. They're all going crazy. They're begging me for food. I can't sleep past a certain time in the morning, so I really don't need an alarm. Like they're
They're
letting me,
up.
and it doesn't matter how late I go to bed. So my morning, honestly, that in all seriousness, that's a part of my morning. But what I started doing this last 6 months was, I don't have like an ice bath or anything, and I don't like it enough to get one of those. It's really uncomfortable, obviously, but super beneficial. A ton of research out there. But what I do is I start with a cold shower every morning. I'll do 30 to 60 seconds. It's amazing how like my first month, I'm just like, man, this is terrible. Like, what am I doing? But every time I did it, I felt better. And so I really started chasing things that making me feel better. So that's one thing that I started doing. I'm very relatively consistent on my sleep and wake times, and that I think has a strong effect on how the day goes. That people sort of overlook. We hear it all the time, like try to go to bed same time, wake up same time, but it's difficult to practice or execute. But I definitely can feel the difference there when I don't stick to routine. Um, then every morning I get to the gym. I'm doing some type of workout or movement to prep my mind, prep my body. Um, I did one this morning and it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. The reason why, because I ate too much at breakfast and I'm like, what am I doing? Come on, man. Like most times I don't really eat before and I feel great. And then I'll have a nice meal after. Today I just happened to eat before and I felt like just crap. So I learn and relearn, all the time. And it's just, I won't do that moving forward. So workout movement, and then I'm typically prepping for my daily sessions, like really getting in mentally, what am I achieving for the day? What am I doing? Who am I helping? How do I, how do I make, how to make who I'm dealing with better? Um, Outside of that, I find like, especially like being in this business so long, I'm really getting particular about scheduling my own time. So I don't even count the workout stuff as part of that because that's just like, I feel like that's prep for my day. I always feel better doing that. But if I can schedule like some fun or personal time, that might be going out for a walk. It might be going to the golf range down the street, hitting for 30 minutes. It might be shooting hoops. I really need that because I have trouble with my off switch as a coach, as a worker. And because of my home life with all the animals, I'm not able to really travel as much as I used to. So I don't really have like those, you can call them like deload periods of like working and then you got time away and you get a little breather and working. I don't get that anymore. So it's really been important for me to have some scheduled personal time. And I think working in the NBA and working around this business for so long, I've worked with a lot of people who don't do any of that. And for me personally, I can get to burnout really fast unless I do that. And and so that really sets my day. And then of course at the end of the day, I'll spend a few minutes sort of reflecting, thinking about like how did it go? What did I do well? What can we do a little bit better? I'm not super hard on myself on that. I don't really journal it or anything, but I do think and I always really think about, are we going in the right direction with my clients? So I do have a reflection period there. So that's sort of the nutshell of my day, mostly, at least from a mental and physical perspective. So
Can't imagine the alarm clocks that you have because I have two alarm clocks, not just on my phone, but my dog Oscar. And coach, it's like on a Saturday, it does it 5:45 a.m. He's up. And you have 15 of those. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
But what a great point about scheduling in that personal time for growth, time just to take a break, time to do something fun outside, to get some vitamin D. And
yeah.
so the what I thought about was if you don't schedule it in, guys like you, the odds of it just happening are very small.
Not
And I,
happening.
and I think that's a reminder for all of us as coaches is to have your day organized, not just with the to-do list of things business wise or school wise, but also those growth moments that you want to have or enjoyment moments. You got to schedule them.
Absolutely, yeah. Because like you said, like even today, I sort of, I had this on the schedule, and then I had some block time where I'm speaking in Canada in a couple weekends, and so I'm trying to tighten up my presentation and get all that set. And just because I'm a very service oriented person, I had some changes in my schedule to some of my athletes, and so I let a few shifts happen, and then before I knew it, I lose 3 hours of my day. It's not really a loss because I'm working, right? But I lose it, the devoted time I had for the presentation. And so if you don't schedule it, if you don't block it, then you think mentally it's open. And then for me, it's hard to say no. If someone wants to work, I want to work too. If someone wants to get better, I want to help you get better. I don't want to turn people away. And so I find I have to really set my boundaries, which I'm getting better with, but I'm not 100% the best at. So I work every day. I work every single day. I'm in the gym every single day. I'm also sort of an antsy person, so I can't sit around the house. Um, animals aside, I mean, I can't really even work at the house, to be honest with you, because it's so many distractions. But it's hard for me to sit still.
The cold showers, man. Mono Watson with PGC does them. This guy, that coaching buddy of mine, Jamin Copeland, there's kind of within the PGC world, there's a famous story of him standing in front of all the athletes one day saying, listen, I take cold showers. I'm a man. And basically that was like he kind of yelling at them about how they should take cold showers. I don't know if it's true or not, but I struggle. I've tried it before. Any advice on getting going with that? Like start with 10 seconds and then quickly switch to hot, or how'd you get to a minute, man?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. But what I learned was breath. Your breath really controls a lot of your response. And so I'll take it back a couple of steps. I had a good couple of friends of mine that followed, the guy Wim Hof, the
Yeah.
big name in that breathwork world, and so they tripped out to Poland, I believe that was where he does his little seminar thing. They went out there, walked in the mountains in their underwear, and
Wow. I've
and
seen videos. They did the whole, like, whatever, like you said, seminar, the whole weekend and stuff with all the, oh man, that's incredible.
yeah, and so while it seems crazy to do that, but it intrigues me just in the sense of, okay, what can we do as human beings? Maybe we're more capable of doing things we don't think we're capable of, like, walking outside in the underwear. My wife's like, you want to pay that amount of money to travel over there and go, like, pay me that, and
That's right.
I'll take you somewhere and say, hey, go walk in the mountain. It sounds ridiculous, but for me, the intrigue, like I said, is like, it's the power of the mind. And my guys that came back, they were really impressed by the whole experience. And so when I do stuff like that, I think, okay, there's got to be a way to improve it, like you improve anything else. And so the way I really started was, it was like working on breath in that process. And it's always hard, but then it becomes just less hard. It's never not hard. It just becomes less hard. That's all. And so I found the breath. I was like, lets me get through it. And now, like, I really enjoy it. And at this point, and I still only do 30 to 60 seconds. I don't do the whole thing in the cold. I don't do that. But now what I do is, instead of going right from cold right to hot, so like, oh, that relief, I literally get in the cold and then I turn the cold off and let me sort of bask in the cold for another 30 to 60 seconds to like reheat myself, because that's sort of the power of it as well. And then I get into my normal shower, routine. And I love that feeling. It's like really energizing. It's like a shot of coffee, really. It's really, I sort of crave it now, which is kind of weird. But it feels good, So I'm chasing those things because I know that if I feel good, then I'm going to deliver a good product for the day, for my clients, for my business, for myself, setting myself up a few percentage points in the right direction.
What are your thoughts on that, the Wim Hof breathing method? Because there's been a few days up here at Faith that when I have a little bit of time, I have a yoga mat and I do three. I don't know if I've ever done 4 rounds of it, but just three on my own. The feeling is incredible, of actually like being able to push all the air out of your lungs and not have to take a breath for over 2 minutes with zero, like to your point, we can do things that make really no sense or we wouldn't think we could do. But what are your thoughts on, is that something that we should be doing daily or some type of work like that?
Yeah, because the reason why I say that now versus if someone asked me 10, 15 years ago, where I have no concept of it, people aren't really emphasizing it like they are now today. I think just because we live in such a fast-paced world of stress, when are we slowing down? What are we all doing when we have a little break? We're doing this, staring at this. Like, what are we doing? That's all we do, right? And so we're just training our brain to be ADD, to be just like distracted. Another thought, like I'm literally at this stage, unless I take a break off the technology, I'm finding myself more often than not having an idea and literally forgetting it 10 seconds later
Wow.
because
Yeah.
I'm so distracted. And so I think the breath work is important because it requires you to focus on one task at a time, which is the breath, and work on that task. And it's hard to do much else, you know. So I think there's some benefit there to like slow down, which is like get off the phone, get out of a distracting environment. Can you focus on one thing? For kids nowadays, wow, that's super tough, super tough. And and so I find it, however you want to do the breath work, there's a million ways to do all these different, you know, breathing techniques. Whatever you find that can help slow you down and practice, whether you want to call it meditation or like breath work or whatever, like, you know, however you call it, I think there's value there. And I really am pretty attentive to that. Whether it's 1 minute a day or 5 minutes a day. A friend of mine that I trained a little bit in high school, and he works out here at my gym with all of my staff now. He went out to LA to be an actor, and then really got into the breath work world in some capacity, where it's really helped him as an actor to like calm down, slow his body down, slow his mind down and stuff. And so he did a routine with me, a certain style of breath, which I had never done before. It just seemed so counterintuitive. And man, my brain, my mind just went into another zone. It was like I was almost hallucinating, in a positive way, like came out of it like, wow, like, and so I've had a few of these different breathwork experiences, like, wow, something's going on where there's some powerful body, some
Yeah.
physiological changes, you know, so there's something there, right? So I just would encourage kids, especially, to maybe practice slowing down, find a way to slow down. And in fact, I've always argued, like, knowing how stressful our lives are, how much we make them that way. We're so on the go, and you got, you know, everything, you know, you have a million different goals. Like, I think a lot of these like health retreats that pop up where people are doing these, you know, getaways, they're basically just like, get off your phone. Let's talk to human beings and hang out and talk
And
face
eat
to face.
whole food. Yeah.
Eat whole food. Let's work out. Let's work out and sweat. Let's get in the sauna. Let's get in some cold. Let's let's breathe a little. You know, it's like basically get off the technology. You know, like you're like I recognize some of this like that, and I think that's where health needs to go in general. Is like let's start to distance ourselves, or maybe have some time to unplug, which is actually a very good book called Unplugged. Friend of mine who went to go see Wim Hof got me that book. You know, we
Awesome.
need to we need to practice some of those things. You know, just like we practice basketball, just like we practice weight training. Like, do we practice turning off? It's
Mm.
hard. It's really hard. Really hard.
Because even if you like, yes, you can put your phone down, you can turn the lights down, you can lay down on a mat, but can you really get your mind off of the tasks that you just did, the tasks that you're about to do? I would see that to be a very helpful skill for players, because we ask them all the time in games to be able to, hey, I know you just fouled the guy, but let that go and now focus on this. Hey, I know we're down. Don't worry about the pass, or you just missed a shot. Focus on the future. There might be something to that where we might need to help our players out, besides just telling them that they need to be good at that type of mentality, or, you know, or controlling your thoughts. Maybe take them through some exercises.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, it's a strategy, right? Like, why wouldn't we do these types of things? It's part of the game. We say it all the time. Like, we're gonna miss a lot of shots. We're gonna make bad plays. That's part of sport, part of life. Why don't we train that more often? Like, train it to be like, hey, really, right now, you just made that mistake. Like, let's practice 1,000 times. Like, just shift your focus on the next play. Really try to let your. So what does that mean? How do you do that? Well, that's a body language conversation, which we talk about all the time. You can see it. You see it in high school sports, college, even professional. Terrible body language.
Hmm.
Complaining to the ref. You know, just making excuses as to why whatever happened didn't go in your favor. You know, how do you work on that? You have to practice it in the moment. You know, it's easy to say when nothing's happened. So I feel like that's a strength repetition, right? Just maybe on the mental side. So that's like one of the things I remember Alan did years ago, and I think he had like a presentation. It was on YouTube somewhere, like playing present, just focusing on the next play. And I would share that out a lot because I mean it's just so applicable. It's applicable to life in general. Like,
Yep.
things are going to be tough. They're supposed to be tough. How do you deal with it? How do you make decisions in the moment when you're struggling? And if you practice dealing with that, you know, that's going to help you, I think, be more familiar in the future because you're going to run into it again, you know.
And you see the pros doing it. I mean, Steve Kerr just a few nights ago, post game press conference after winning Game 7 against the Kings, they asked, "How are you guys perform so well in Game Sevens in those moments?" He's like, "Well, one, we're process based. We're focusing on that." He literally said, "And you know, in timeouts, we're breathing. Like they're focusing on their breath." So whatever the best of the best are doing, it's be wise for us to try to see what we can pull, what we can use, even at the high school level, because there's something to that, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I that's a great point, man. And I think most people that are maybe not coaching or maybe just peripheral fans, they might say, well, they got Steph Curry, they got Klay Thompson. That's why. And that obviously that's 95, 96% of the reason why. But you can't dismiss the process like that Steve Kerr has put in place. He's a successful player, he's a successful coach. And he's had ups and downs, obviously, with their organization where they've been high, they've been low, and everything at that level matters. And so if there's a breathing technique, if there's a calming technique, you have one of the best shooters in the history of the game. But he also has off days. So whatever he's doing to help him be on, like that's a percentage point in his favor. And there's a system, there's a process in place that has allowed them to replicate and be consistent. And it's not an accident that they do so well. Like you just can't say it's only talent. I mean,
Everybody has talent.
everybody.
Everybody. The worst teams are still incredible. Like the players and the athletes they're incredible. But yeah, sorry.
Absolutely. No question about it. Mm-hmm.
Before we go to the next one, I got to ask, do you mind sharing the breathing technique or just kind of explaining it that your actor friend did that you kind of reacted in such a unique way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of hard to explain, but I'll stand up for a second. Hopefully you can see me clearly enough. So let's see if I can get back a little bit. Let's see. So
Perfect.
it was all mouth, which I'm so used to, like almost all nose. So it was like breathe in hard through the belly, and then it's belly, and then it was chest. So it's one, and then two, and then mouth exhale. So it's one, two, three, and so you sort of go at your own pace. So it's like big belly, big chest, and then exhale out. So for me, it was so counterintuitive because all the breathing that I have come across as people was like no chest, all belly expansion, sometimes nose in, only nose out. And it was all about keeping this down because, like I explained to my athletes, like, what do you do when someone frightens you? Or you're in the car and you've got to put on the brakes. What do? We do this. Okay, like we shrug up, we tense up, like that tension. We breathe in through the chest, and it's a shallow breath into the body. Versus the nose breath with big expansion of the belly, really getting in a lot of oxygen, right? And so I was like, man, what is this? What's going on? But man, I did it in probably about 20 minutes, and he was there with me. My mind was just really going. So I don't know the exact science behind it, but it was intriguing for me, intriguing enough for me to like maybe try it again and practice a little bit. But I was a while back, I was getting so frustrated hearing people talk about breathing because like everybody's got some different style.
Yeah.
I had a therapist buddy years ago show me a specific style that he calls true breath. And that, like, he would have somebody on the table and he would, even on me, he worked on me a bunch, and he would show different tender points in the body. And I can't tell you, hundreds and hundreds of times I've seen it. He would have it show a tender spot on the body and maybe hit something, multiple points. And then we would do this breath. We would do like 3 rounds of it, which takes a minute. And then all of a sudden that tender point just like gone. Okay. And I put him in sort of like a Yoda category. He was like way out there, way out of the box. Combination of like, he was like an acupuncturist, physical therapist, a lot of Eastern philosophy, medicine style stuff, very out of the box. And I saw him just treat pain like nobody ever seen before. And myself included, because I was always beating myself up. And so I tried it and tried it. And every time I got out of rhythm or like achy or just broken down, it's when I got out of rhythm with this breathing, And so I teach it to my athletes as well. It's very simple, not complicated. I can go through that as well real quick. If you lay on your back, and again, I can't explain the science. I could have him try to, but I just know I feel better. Um, it's a difficult one. So handle and belly, handle chest. Ideal if you lay on the ground and you breathe in big as much as you can through the belly that one time. Then you hold your breath. You try to do it a second time, okay? Which you're gonna feel like you have nothing. You try to do it a third time, hold it, and then a slow mouth exhale. So that's one. So it's belly, belly, belly.
Nose through the
Yeah,
belly. Okay.
exactly right. And then exhale through the mouth to release everything, slow. So basically what you feel is like, you feel like you're not getting anything that second and third. Okay, but as you practice, you'll learn like, wow, I can really expand. I can get a little more, really expanding, and then a slow exhale. And we would do 3 or 4 rounds of that, and I would see people as
What's
like,
a round?
oh, round is that exactly. So it's
okay.
so breathe in 1, hold it. Breathe in 2, hold it. Breathe in 3, and you're trying not to let the chest expand. Keep it low. That's why your hands here to recognize like, is this going? And then a breathe out. That's round 1. We would literally do 3 of those. And obviously any more of those is good. So my therapy guy was like, do that every day, do it every day. And I'd see him with people on the table. I'd bring some of my athletes over and I'd watch him do stuff. And again, like I say, he worked on me. And I could feel the difference, like, wow, what is that? What's going on? But I don't know the science behind it, but I just know anecdotally, like,
yeah,
something's happening there.
And it doesn't take a lot of time either. Like I think I always struggle if somebody gives me something that, hey, you got to do this with your player. Okay, how long does it take? About 15, 20 minutes. Well, I get 43 minutes with them every day in second period, in athletics. And we got basketball in there too that we got to hit. So, but I like that because that doesn't take a lot of time, but it's like doing yoga. It's like you just don't know all the ways that it's really helping you.
Exactly,
you'll never
right.
know.
Exactly right. But think about it, like whatever you choose to do. What if we spent 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes every day of like, hey, we're gonna slow down.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do this breath work and we're gonna try this technique. Maybe they're all different each time, whatever. Let kids sort of like feel what they feel.
Yeah.
And decide whatever helps them feel better, right? And maybe you do it different points in the practice. Maybe it's different points of the class where it's not like, hey, every time I walk in the door for class, we're going to do the breathing. Maybe it's midway through. Maybe it's at the end. Maybe it's after a hard question. I think getting familiar and just making that like a part of the process where it's not something like weird, like what are we doing here? I think that normalization.
So you're saying don't get a gong out and
I haven't gone that route yet, but I've seen people do it. Yeah, I'm not quite there yet, but I'll stick to the breathing.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. So you've been able to train, just some high-level achievers in different sports. But what's something that if you could kind of choose a common theme or thread that they all have, what is that?
Yeah, so I thought about this, and I've been lucky to see a lot of different athletes over the years. The one thing I always feel like wins out is the consistency. Okay, it's hard to be consistency, and let's just call it the skill of showing up. It's a skill. You got to show up. Okay, and one guy that stuck out to me while I was my short period in the NBA was a Brad Beal. Okay, he showed up every day, ready to go. He over time developed a routine that helped him feel better and ready to go. Now, he wasn't a guy knocking down my door to get into the weight room, but anytime I needed him to get our work in, he showed up. He showed up on time. He's ready to work. He puts in a good effort. And so when he had that structure and he knew what helped him feel better and prepare better, he's showing up. And I think all the best athletes do that. And it'd be hard to argue against if you're just, unless you're just ultra talented and at the NBA level, everybody's talented, like you said. But I think as a high school player, as a college player, you have to be able to show up when you don't want to show up. Okay. Like I remember a strength coach years ago that I was mentored by. He told me, he's like, man, if we all worked out when we felt great, we'd all work out once a month. Okay, like let's keep it real. There's always going to be a little bit of as an athlete in sport,
Yeah.
you're going to have some nicks and some aches and some pain. You can make every reason why I don't want to work out. I didn't get 8 hours of sleep. My neck is sore. My ankles are sore. If we make those excuses, we can never show up. Okay, if you don't show up, you're not going to get better at anything. You're just not. So I think there's a skill in that show up, right, and consistency. And I got to really see guys that were committed as, specifically as veterans, maybe guys that figured it out later in their career, So I found that to be pretty helpful here. Yeah, man, consistency, showing up. If kids can get that down, that's a life skill that's going to help you in anything. I really truly believe that. And then I think on top of that too is like it's players that realize that there's so much more to the game than just showing up to skill workouts, showing up to the AAU tournaments and practice. There's so much more. Okay. And so years ago, I had to really realize, like, man, how am I able to grow my business so well? It's not the push-ups, it's not the squats, it's not the exercise selection. It's got to be more than sets and reps. Okay. What is it? Well, I come to realize, so much of it's about relationships. It's building that connection with the kid. It's building that belief that they can trust me. I want to help them. They know that I'm there I get their back. And that's basically what we've built is a nice family community of like, hey, you walk in the door, as long as you reciprocate with some good effort and you're smart and you follow instructions, you're coachable, we're going to get better together, and it's going to be a lot of fun, And so the athletes, I think, that learn like, hey, man, there's so much more than just the training. There's the sleep, there's the nutrition, there's the recovery, there's my pregame prep, there's my postgame prep. Maybe it's a lift, maybe it's a stretch, being attentive to other things. I think the guys that have been most successful are the guys that understand that's part of the puzzle, man. Most people, hopefully, we all should wake up and brush our teeth when we wake up. That's a part of our day, and we don't think about it. I think these higher level professional athletes that have had great careers and lengthy careers, it's not an accident. You got to look at their schedule. What do they do? It's a lot more than just showing up getting shots. It's a lot more than 6 a.m. grinding workouts on Instagram. It's not that. There's a lot of deeper things that affect our success and performance. So that's what I've noticed. With some of these higher level guys.
You had a nugget earlier in our talk. You said it's still hard, but it's less hard. And I really like that because I think sometimes with our players, their mind is, if I just do this enough times, it won't suck anymore. Well, no, it probably, if you're pushing and if you're training hard, there's always going to be a little level of discomfort, a level that you don't feel great about, or you wish you could pull back a little bit. That doesn't go away, but it's just less hard. I would imagine consistency really helps that feeling come, right? Is that because they keep showing up, you know what? It's less hard now. Still hard, but less than before.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, let's keep it real. Like, if you've been a coach, you've been a player, for anybody listening and stuff, like, why do we want it easy? Do we really want it easy? Do you really want it easy? Because if it's easy, everybody's going to do it. Everybody's going to have it. And then it's not that rewarding, right? Like, if we could all shoot like Steph Curry, we wouldn't care about Steph Curry, right? We just wouldn't. It would just be like, whatever, it's normal. So why don't we want to embrace a little bit of hard? And then how does that not develop a skill set, a toughness? Maybe toughness is not the right word, but a durability to withstand stress in other aspects of our life. Okay, family, school, career. How does that not help us? That's why I feel like sports is such a tremendous tool to help us in other aspects of our life. You got to embrace hard, man. And that's something as a kid, early on, I didn't have that. I didn't have that explanation. I'd be outside on the court working on drills and skills, and then I would just kick the basketball out of frustration because I missed my handle. I dropped my handle. I just lost it. I'd be so mad. I didn't realize that I'm supposed to fail. I got to go fast enough, hard enough to fail. So I realize how I can get better. Okay. And so I think we need to embrace hard. We want hard. Like my business, it's hard, man. I don't want
Yeah.
it easy. I want to
Yeah.
earn. I want to earn. I want my kids to earn it. I want them to feel like, man, I learned so much. And that's why I think we probably learn a lot from thinking about like, wow, the process of that, the journey of that, I think is really what we should be excited about. And that's where really the meat and potatoes is. And then when maybe you have an accolade, you reach your goal or something like that. That's icing on the cake. It's more of the lessons inside of that process. How did you get there? What did you do? It's a lot of this, man. It's a lot up and down. I tell my kids all the time, like we track some of our training performance metrics on a force plate, and their data points are much like life, man. It's like you're gonna have some highs, some lows, some high, some low. But excuse me, from A to Z, it's gonna be that. That's the trend. But there's gonna be some up and down. It's never linear. It's never. That's not. And that's not life. It's not life, you know. So we shouldn't really want it that way. But I think if as a kid coming up as an athlete, like if I knew that, man, I would have been so much easier on myself. I was so hard on myself. Like I
Yeah.
suck and I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. And then I just beat myself up mentally. And that definitely held me back personally as an athlete. But I didn't have anybody. No, we didn't talk about these things. It wasn't a thing, you know, in the 90s, you know, when I'm coming up 80s, 90s.
That's right.
It wasn't, you know.
I
So
love that mantra though of embracing hard. And I think, I mean, I'm at I mentioned it, a small Christian private school where majority of these kids have had it pretty good. You know, if they're at faith, parents are doing okay, like silver spoon, you know, so not a lot of adversity has come their way. And so the balance that I'm finding is yes, we want to embrace hard and there's going to be challenges, but then I think maybe the art of it too in coaching is how can we still make it fun? Because for a lot of my players, there's not this carrot dangling out in front of them of college basketball like I had. Like, coach, I'll do whatever you say because this is where I want to get. For some of my guys, it's they just want to be a part of a team. They want to be a part of a program, and they want to, you know, have athletics be something that they did, but their life is they're already looking beyond. So I guess maybe a question for you: how do I have them? Because I feel like we do that at Faith, but how do I have them embracing hard, but then also understanding that in part of that struggle, there's a lot of fun in that as well.
yeah, I mean, maybe for each kid, it's like that, you know, really well. It's like set them up with a certain goal or a certain target. Okay. You know, that's reachable, but like challenging enough, like, hey, you're gonna have to work for this, man. You know, in cases that I think of kids, you know, like it might be body fat, you know, getting body fat to a certain level. It might be getting strength to a certain level. It might be getting their jump to a certain level and saying, hey, that's our target, man. I don't know when it's going to come. A lot of this is going to be dependent on your effort, consistency, the skill is showing up, you know. It's going to be hard, but man, when you get that, you know, and I think as a coach, I think part of my success is framing like what could be. Okay. So as a coach for you, I would say frame what could be. Maybe it's that kid who's like, man, I want to be stronger. Okay. Do you really want to be stronger? Your habits aren't really showing you want to be stronger. Okay. But hey, let's visualize what would it be like to have 10 pounds of muscle in that, the shoulders. Okay. Wow, that'd be incredible. Wow. You start to visualize, put it in their head. What could that be like? Man, my game would be so different, man. Like I'm going into people versus people throwing me back going to the hoop, you know? So frame it, we're like, wow, what could be if I did that? And so like I do that all the time. So in my gym, I have like hanging tennis balls as like markers to touch, you know, it's like automatic vertical jump testimonials. You know, one day you're touching the shortest one, next
Wow, I like that. I
you're
like
touching
that.
higher. And then the ultimate is we have a vent that's 11 feet. So when guys touch that, like that's the ultimate, you know, so cool. And I tell kids all the time, man, hey, we're gonna keep, man. Imagine when we get to that next tennis ball, bro. Like that's great. You know, you're gonna be so much more athletic, right? And so I'm framing the success. And when they're listening to me, they're like, wow, if coach is telling me this, like he must really believe that I can do it. And I truly do, you know, And I make that sort of my responsibility to say anything that I frame for them, I really got to put them in position to be successful versus like, so a funny side story is like one of my trainers, his kid is he's young and he's super short and he's a basketball nut and he might be 5 feet, if he's lucky. And one of my other kids in the same grade is like dunking already, and he's been training for a good year. So he's got the natural athletic genes in his butt, and he just has it. And but this younger kid is just slow growing, and the parent was like, he's like, I'll pay you $1,000 if you can get him to dunk next year. And I was like, I don't think I can frame that for that guy because it's just might not be there right now, but maybe down the road. And so I would frame things differently for him. It's like, hey, we're actually going for that first tennis ball. We're just going for that first one. Let's go there first, man. Let's one step at a time, one step. But I want to put them in position to be successful so that a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road, we can say, hey, look at all the work we did. Look at our workout sheets. It took a long time. It took work, man. It's hard. And we want to respect that process. It's got to be hard. Okay. You're going to learn from that. So framing, I think, is important.
I love that. And I think you nailed it too, because you mentioned relationships early on. How can you get guys to embrace hard? There's got to be a relationship there because, I mean, it's the intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations. I can extrinsically motivate them by threatening them. You do this or else you're going to run. Yeah. You're going to feel pain. Yeah, that'll work for a little bit, but it's shallow. And at some point, there's going to be no fun in that at all. But if I can somehow get them to be intrinsically motivated, it comes within them, from them, by framing it the right way, from having a relationship with them and actually knowing what their goals are. Man, you can take kids, in my opinion, through a lot of things that suck. But man, they can all of a sudden have a smile about it, bring a little bit more energy. But I think you nailed it with that framing and relationship piece.
Yeah, and I gotta share something else too that's been so powerful for me as a coach, and it really framed. It's a portion of what framed my ability to be the coach that I am today. And so I grew up basically around coaches that were like, "Hey, if you made a mistake, you're punished. Go run, go do push-ups, go do whatever." Like, and no strategy to be like, "Hey, here's how we could do this a little better." And so I was used to the negativity. And then I grew up in a household of negativity because my dad, before my parents got divorced, was the most negative person I ever met in my life. Okay. And it was all negative, 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 not, hey, good job, man. Hey, it was a tough day, but good work, man. I never had that. So not until, no joke, my junior year of high school, we never had a lacrosse program. It wasn't a thing in my area, not for public school. So I had a couple buddies that were like, hey, they're starting a lacrosse program. Let's join and just mess around, I never touched the lacrosse stick, man. So you can imagine how good that was. But I love lacrosse. Why? Because it made so much sense to me for basketball, the spacing, the pick and roll, the movement. I excelled right away because of basketball concepts. And I loved it. And I loved the physical aspect too. Anyways, our coach was 23 years old at the time, just a graduate at MIT, played lacrosse there. He looked younger than us. We always joked that we was like, we got to put Mr. Getz in the game because they won't even know he's a coach. He looked like a kid. And he was really good. So I remember specifically my first couple of weeks messing up a ton because we just didn't know how to play. We could barely pass and catch. And I'm like thinking to myself, man, this sucks. I'm negative. I'm down on myself. And I'm thinking we're just going to get crushed with running because it's a big running sport. And he was like, hey, it's all good, man. Don't worry. Like, let's go. Next play. I was like, what just happened? It was like a relief off my shoulders because I was so used to like, hey, get on the line. You guys suck. Get on the line. That's how I literally had been coached like that nonstop. And he was like, no, dude, it's okay. Like, let's go. Pick it up. Next play. Forget about it. And I was like, you can coach like that? I was like, I didn't think. And like, wow, all of a sudden my game exploded because I was less afraid to make mistakes, which you're supposed to make mistakes in sport. And that blossomed me as a coach. I was like, man, if I had someone there just be like, hey, this is part of the process, man. It's gonna be some ups and downs and learn. I feel like athletically, mentally, physically, I would have just really accelerated. And that's part of the reason why I'm the coach I am today. Some of these kids don't have that. They don't have that still to this day, So you got to set the path, you got to frame it and show them the steps how they can be successful,
Man, thank you for sharing that because I think sometimes I'm 41. And so you and I are very similar in ages, been doing this 16 years, which is not a long time, but after a few years, you can start to wonder, like, man, does this really matter? Like, am I actually affecting anybody's lives in any way? And then occasionally you'll get text messages from some players like, hey, really appreciate the lessons. Really, and those are great coaching paychecks right there. But Absolutely. Your story is exactly, I think, why we do this, because look at the change of the trajectory of your life because of a lacrosse coach, not even the sport that you're really playing, like a lacrosse coach, but he influenced you in such a huge way. And in some way, like if you look at a coaching tree, his tree, you're a part of that. And the athletes that you mean, that's because of that guy in a lot of ways. And so that's just a great reminder. If there's somebody listening that is in that mindset that I've been in before of, this just seems to be, I don't feel like I'm doing any good right now. Like they're just stay positive, keep the process, keep breathing, like Steve Kerr said, because I think we're affecting more lives than we know.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that I did, like in that capacity, like again, my work's hard, man. It's hard. It's grindy in a lot of ways. And even though I love what I do, we will also have, good and bad days. We're human beings, right? But one thing I recently started doing was like recording like what I call small wins. Okay, so every season, say whatever this past winter time, really just making notes so I don't forget, because I'll forget. I'm getting older. Like, wow, this kid had a really, really good in-season training period during the basketball season. In fact, so good, we made some increases in our jump and our strength. And I was like, wow. And that was off once a week. I'm like, wow, okay, so that was a small win, but really a big win. And so I make note of that. And then this kid did that, and that kid did that. And this kid made changes in this department. And so I try to remind myself that it's not just these sets and reps, and not just coming in the door and the volume, but like what impact are we really, really making, in this process. And so I'm trying to make notes on it so I don't forget, because we see so many kids, and it is easy to forget. You might forget about kids you had 10 years ago that you taught a lesson, and it was like, wow, that was so powerful, and they might come back to this type of stuff. So it's good to remember. And then if you remember, you might parlay that to somebody else,
Coach, that's a good nugget. I wrote down record small wins.
Yeah.
I love doing these talks because that's a great idea. And then sometimes, you take it and maybe use it even in a different way. And so I thought, like with social media, with our program, always trying to think of different ways to highlight players, especially in the spring and summer. But even during the school year, because at the school, sometimes the same guys are getting highlighted all the time. So yes. How could I highlight some others? And I'm literally thinking this morning, we're in the weight room because we have to be in there before school. It's about 6:30 a.m. and a player was able to do 2 reps on bench that a month ago he couldn't do. Yeah. And I saw it and I said, is that more than you've been able to do? He's like, yeah. And there's this smile. Well, what if I just grabbed my phone and I took a picture of it, of him smiling in that moment, and just put it out there of, hey, small win today. Like what a great opportunity. And like you said, I remember it. He gets to remember that. And I think also what that will do is it'll help me to be looking for those small wins more.
Why wouldn't we highlight that? Because it's measurable progress, right? It's also something on the mind. It's a great way to challenge kids, keep kids engaged. Now, I love the small win. So I communicate that to my athletes as well. Like, hey, man, like, dude, you did this 2 months ago. You're crushing it now. Or you could barely touch the vent. Now you're smacking it with your palm, right? That's like, I don't need to test vertical jump anymore. You've proven you've made the progress, And I know for me as an athlete, even now today, I'm still addicted to the process. I'm addicted to getting better and finding things that make me feel better and feel better to perform. And I think that's a fun part of that process for athletes to experience. So that's why I still train myself as if I'm one of the athletes, because I need to know what's helping, what's working, so I can help them be better and experience similar, types of things.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans,
create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
A question that a lot of high school coaches that are in charge of the strength and conditioning in season, how many days a week do you think we should be getting in the weight room? And then also out of season as well.
Yeah, so this will be, start with a general answer, but we'll get more specific. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think 2 to 3 times a week in season is really ideal. But what matters more is like, what are you doing? Like, what exactly you're doing? Just because you walk in the weight room doesn't mean you check the box. Like, what are you doing? You could really be putting yourself in a bad position, or you could be hurt, or you could be helping yourself. Okay, so it's more specifically, what are you doing off season? Obviously, more flexibility. I mean, I guess for the older athletes, not so much for the high school kid, because there's really no true off season, to be honest with you.
That's right.
But ideally, if you do have an off season, 3 to 4 times is nice, is ideal. But we always got to keep in mind, like, what are hoopers doing? Hoopers are hooping. They're playing basketball, as they should be. They should be playing a lot of basketball, working on their game. Basketball is not one of those sports that you should step away from the ball for a few days because you're going to feel different. Your touch and your feel and your handle, it just loses fast, so you got to have your hands on it. So I've always been a big proponent of like focusing on lower volume type of work, trying to get as much as possible out of minimal. And I know some coaches don't like that. They might say, well, why do the minimal? Why don't you do the maximum? Because the reason why I say that is because let's keep it real. Who's our population? We're dealing with high school kids. They don't sleep well. They don't eat. They never eat good enough. Okay, so you got 2 stressors that are not in favor for them. So they're not maximally recovering. They don't know how much water to drink. They're never doing that. Okay, so you got multiple factors going against their recovery process. Okay, and so if we're adding stress on top of stress on top of stress, eventually these kids are going to break down. I tell kids all the time, like, your goal this season needs to be to not get sick. Stop getting sick. Why do you get sick? You get sick because you're run down, because you're not recovering properly, and it might be a million different things. Okay, and when you're run down and you get sick, you lose 3, 4, 5 days of practice, and then you get out of shape, and then you got to catch back up. And so I see kids all the time, like, they get sick over and over just because they're doing too much. And so, so I think having a lower volume, very focal approach, for the kid, trying to get the most quality you can out of a session. You know what I mean? So I generally tend to keep our stuff lower volume, quick hits. We go hard. We track metrics. We make sure that we're progressing at an appropriate rate. But, the general answer is, I think two times a week in season is probably a sweet spot, but you got to be very strategic. When do you do it? How do you do it? What do the kids do that are sitting on the end of the bench not playing? They can be on a different routine because they don't have to be. They could be a little sore. They could be a little sore if they're, and that's a whole different conversation we could go into. Is like another time. Is like, I think coaches miss the boat a lot of times on what are those kids doing that aren't playing. I was one of those kids. I was a mediocre basketball player in high school. I wanted to be better. I was just very average, and I didn't play a lot of minutes. I definitely didn't start. Played more as I got older, but I didn't start. So like when I would get in the game and I've been practicing all year long, I'd feel out of shape. I'd be like, wow, what's going on? Why? Because the guys that are playing 20, 25 minutes a game in high school and I'm playing 5, they're getting in that much better shape every game. Okay. And so I'm behind that much more every single game. So then when I get in the game, I'm like, I feel like I never played. That fatigue level pops up, and then you can't focus, can't process, can't coordinate. Then you just feel worse and you perform worse.
Yeah.
And so I think addressing training for those kids that are like, aren't playing as much, try to be ready, stay ready. How do you do that? How do you do that without making them stay after a game and run whatever amount to like catch up? Like, you got to have, I think coaches need to have some strategies there and explain why to do that type of stuff. Because at college level and NBA, you're going to do that. If you're on an NBA roster and you're the bottom of the roster and you're making $2 million a year, when your name is called, you better be ready. You better be ready. Nobody in the stands cares. Your coaches know you better be ready. You can't be like, well, I'm not in shape because Brad Beal's taking 35 minutes a game. Nah, you better be ready to go, or else you're gonna be in another organization or out of the league. So I think with kids, I recognize that a lot more. Like, if you're not playing, man, what are we doing to get better in a smart way? where you can take advantage of some time. Maybe it's, hey, I can contribute more time to my upper body development, which can make a big difference. I might be able to do a little more on my agility at this time because I'm not playing. Like if you're on game day and you're not going to play, it might serve you well to do some hard agility as if you were playing. So you get simple stress, right? So I think there's some things to consider there for coaches, like when you talk about what do these kids need at different points of the year.
I like that. I thought about skill work too, because so often, to your point, once team time starts in season, individual skill work tends to go. It goes away. And well, at that point, your best scorer, probably your point guard, and a couple other guys that maybe have the ball in their hands or shoot, they're still improving. But 7, 8, 9, all the way down, they're not getting those same reps unless you have a blocked out time for individual skill work. But even then, there's ways to maximize the time for some of those guys. But I love the idea of maybe creating workouts that are slightly different. One, to protect those athletes that are having more miles put on their legs. Maybe they have some more recovery-based movements or ideas in their workout, but then the opposite, to continue to develop. Because at the end of the day, going back to the relationship piece, everybody wants to feel like they're valued, and they're getting better.
Of course. Absolutely. I mean, everybody's got a different role and responsibility. And that's something I'm really targeting on, like explaining to kids is like, not everybody's going to be the LeBron James. Not everybody's going to be the Steph Curry. There's the Kevin Looney's who proved very important, right? In that game 7. So we don't talk about him very often, but he pulled out 20 plus boards. Okay. So if you understand your role and responsibility, say you're the 12th guy on the team, you play sometimes you don't. Your responsibility is to be ready. So what does that responsibility include? I think as coaches, we should help map that out, what that really means. And how can I be as ready as possible when my name is called? If the 8th or 9th guy gets hurt, then my 12th spot might move up to 8 or 9. And I'm playing, instead of 5 minutes a game, I'm playing 15 minutes a game. How can I be ready for that? And I think that does kids a nice service to keep things in perspective and keep them prepared as much as possible versus not doing that and saying, hey, all of a sudden, you're taking these minutes now and you're just not ready. That's not just on the kid, that's on the coach. It's on the coach as well,
Yep. Out of season, what kind of split? Let's just say they had 4 days that they could lift. What type of split? I mean, and again, I'm sure you could go into probably a 2-hour talk about what to do in those days, but just real quick, what's your advice there?
I mean, I think, look, at the high school level, we just have to you got to get good at doing things that are really, really simple. Like a lot of kids I see, even in high school, can't even do a proper push-up. They think they're doing push-ups, but they're not doing push-ups. A lot of kids lack, have mobility restrictions in the hips and the ankles, the thoracic spine, can't do certain movements. I think you're going to want to split those 4 days up into really learning how to get a wide variety of movements through the upper body, through the lower body. So I would literally go upper, lower, just to get some exposure. Okay. Some time in the weight room to learn, to not be in a rush, So if we have 2 days a week, you got to do full body on those. Cause I've always leaned on the fact that at the end of the week, I want to have 2 full bodies at the end of the week. You can get there a lot of ways. You can do 4 days, upper, lower. You can get there 3 days, full body, upper 1 day, lower 3rd. You can get there 2 days a week, full body. Ultimately, at the end of the week, I want to get 2 full bodies. Sometimes that changes during the season, depending on energy demands and gameplay and minutes, stuff like that. But in general, twice a week is ideal. And so you want to spend some time. You don't want to rush the weight room. You don't want to do everything in a fatigue state because you're not really learning the patterns, learning the coordination of patterns. And so I would really break it up to upper, lower, and get good with doing the simple things really, really well. Push up, squat, hinge, lunge, balance, learn how to move and in and out of different positions and angles. Really pay particular attention to tendon health, because we're seeing more and more kids nowadays with patellar tendonitis, Osgood Schlatter's, seeing more kids now with Achilles issues, which is really an old man issue, shouldn't be a young kid issue. It's an overuse issue. Seeing a lot of that. So having some attention to potential issues, whether they're there or not. What are you doing to help protect these kids' knees and their ankles and Achilles? There's got to be attention there. And so I don't think things need to be super complicated and basic. And what are basketball players doing a lot while they play basketball? They're jumping, they're sprinting, they're doing agility, they're reacting. So one could argue that you're getting a lot of that in the game. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't do it, in your training, but you've got to decide, like, where should my effort really be spent?
Yeah.
And that changes at different points of the year, obviously. If you got a kid who really can't move and doesn't move well, then you're going to really want to spend time helping that kid learn the coordination pattern, because that will translate to the court. Certain kids are super athletic and move really well, and they just might need more of a strength focus. And so everybody's going to have sort of different buckets, different times of the year. But in general, most kids are just not strong. They're not strong with their own body. And I think that's one out of many pieces of the puzzle to help keep them healthy and available,
Coach, before I let you go, I want to take you through the speed round. These are quick questions just to get to know you a little bit better. Sound good?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, milk and cookies, Ben and Jerry's, hands down. That was too quick. I almost said it before you asked it.
You did. Favorite cereal, since you're a big fan of that as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I had so many. I would say Crunch Berries. That's definitely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry, hands down.
Texting or talking?
Talking all day long, man. We got to get face to face with people, man. Yep.
Do you FaceTime quite a bit on the phone?
I don't actually. I don't. I probably should. I enjoy that more. A couple kids I do that with, but mostly just talk. Yeah.
Nice. Best basketball movie of all time?
Oh man, for me it was Hoop Dreams. I took my mom. I made my mom go to that movie, and she was like, "That was the worst movie ever. It was so long. It was so long, 3 hours, and I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. It was like one of the first ever times you saw like a real life documentary behind the scenes of somebody going through that process, high school, college, the ups and downs, the hard life that sport can be. And I just couldn't get enough of that. I was in middle school, I think, at the time, maybe early school. So that for me was the top one. Yeah.
That was great. Yeah. Now I'm in Texas, where there's no shot clock, sadly, but for high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock, man. Make those kids, they got to decide, make decisions. I hate the stall ball. I don't like. I understand it, but I just hate that it affects the game so much.
Favorite holiday?
Man, I probably would just go with Christmas. Thanksgiving is nice to be with family, but I don't like Thanksgiving food, so I have to go with Christmas, I think. Yeah.
You don't like Thanksgiving food?
No, not the traditional, not like a big turkey guy, not stuff.
Yeah.
My wife's Greek. She we try to have like stuff we like, lamb.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And all that. Yeah.
You already mentioned the book Unplugged, but what book would you give someone?
There was a book that I gave out probably 20 times years ago. It's by Paul Chek, Chek. It's called How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And I found that early in my career off a recommendation of a friend, and that just opened my eyes to be like, wow, maybe nutrition has a bigger effect on us than we think.
Mm-hmm.
And he really went into depth there that regarding that subject and movements, and it was some very unorthodox ways to go about training. But I really found that book to be powerful to like sort of look deeper past traditional mindset of nutrition and training stuff. And so I probably have handed that book out, at least 20 times years ago. Yeah.
A couple more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
So if I go past one, then I'm a little bit antsy, which I did today. So I'm a little bit not good for me. I actually do better when I'm off of it, but I just like coffee. I love coffee. So
it's more the ritual for me, I think, than actually like I'm so far past my caffeine threshold that I don't even feel that. But I love the taste, and like just even while I'm on this talk, like just kind of getting this. I don't know.
Yeah. It's definitely powerful. I only started drinking coffee about 10 years ago. Never had it. and started it really for the performance benefits. Because
Mhm.
one of mine was like, man, you got to have coffee before you work out. It's going to help a lot. Tried it. I was like, wow, I really feel the difference. So I really started on the performance side, but I do go on and off of long periods because I think it's good to like restabilize.
Yeah, I need to do that.
I see people all the time. I got guys that work here for me that are like drinking coffee late at night. There's no question if you're having it late at night, your sleep is affected in a negative way. Even though they say they can sleep, but their patterns, their rhythm is not on if you're drinking coffee super late. I know people do
Yeah.
it a lot, but not for me.
Last one in basketball, who is the GOAT?
Oh, Michael Jordan, man. That's not even a question. That's a simple question. Michael Jordan.
What a stupid question.
And I don't think we can say like this is of course just opinion based, but I don't, people could argue, well, a lot of the kids will say it's LeBron, it's whoever, Kobe. A lot of it, I think, depends on who you watched growing up.
That's right.
Of course,
Yeah.
for me, it's Michael Jordan, and then prior to me, people will say, the Oscar Robinsons, the Wilts, the Kareems, the Bill Russells. But I think just with MJ and really how he just transformed the league, he transformed the shoe culture in the world. I just think he has so many levels of how he changed how we looked at basketball, how much money it's making now. For me, he's the one. Kobe is a very close second there. And then LeBron would be shortly behind those guys. LeBron's been tremendous, obviously. And what he's doing now in the playoffs is just, it's wild. It's really incredible fun to watch. But for me, it's a Michael Jordan thing, man. He's just, and then to leave a sport, go to another sport, come back and redominate. I mean, come on.
Insane.
Man. Yeah, that's just, it's not normal. Not normal.
Yep. Coach, this was so much fun. You almost gave me an hour and a half of your time, humbled by it, and really appreciate everything you shared.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I really enjoyed it. And if it's okay, I'm going to take a screenshot picture.
Yeah, let's do that.
I can share that. I definitely enjoyed my time today as well. And I'm excited to share it out when it gets
That's a great idea, Coach. You're just, I mean, I'm gonna do that as well. I don't know how to not look stupid but no. Hey, but before you get off, if anybody has questions for you, wants to learn a little bit more on nutrition, on training, what's a good way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, people can reach out to me at healthyballer_OG on Instagram. I don't have a huge following there. I'm trying, but I haven't really had much success with the growing the followership. But I'm trying to put out good content there when I'm able to. Healthy Baller, just as an Instagram, you'll see some of the stuff we do there as a business. People can message me there anytime they want. I'm trying to put out regular content, but it's challenging when I'm doing 40 different things, through the gym. So I'm going to keep working at it and trying to, put in small pieces of the puzzle where I know I can help kids, in the basketball community and stuff. So that's probably the best way. People can, like I said, message me or email me. They can find me online on healthyballer.com. Email me off directly there if they have questions. Happy to help out. I'm a service-oriented person. I'm in the service business. It's my job to serve people and help them be, better. So that's what I'm planning to do and will continue to do.
Love that. Coach, man, really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.